Alright, thanks for watching the Lizard Circus. Just know, for every view this video gets, we sacrifice one newborn child to the sun. Our top story tonight. Have you seen our Carl vids? The family lawnmower has been suspended and is now out for the count. But don't fret, if you still need to get your fix for Carl vids, they're continuing their streak of terror on Secret Salad Society. The Robotnik collab came out, but I didn't actually watch it, mostly because it was like an hour long, and I don't think there's any possible way for me to watch that. And also, I kind of made a big error on the last BlueCast, so I figure I should clear it up, even though it was a joke. Yes, as you've probably figured, I'm not the last YouTube show in this community. That was meant as a joke, but looking back on it, I did not make it clear enough. The Little Dragons has gotten a bit of a new layout recently, and also, the YouTube of the Week system that I used to do as a solo project has now been converted to a community-wide project. Go to thelittledragons.freeforums.org to vote for your favorite poop of the week so it can be featured on the front page. And as usual, collabs that need signups are in the description. Our Spotlight collab is the Heroes vs. Villains collab that's being held by Smodge. The way the collab works is that you focus on either a hero or a villain in a specific source when you make your poop. Kind of like Robotnik poops, only it's not necessarily Robotnik. If you want in on that, you should contact him for more details. And here comes the fun part. You know, I'm always thinking about stupid things, but more recently I thought of a really stupid idea. What if YouTube were to have its own history textbook? Like, you know what I mean, a full detailed writing of every major event, influential pooper, and era of YouTube poop? And I already know what you're thinking. And Chewiki is a great resource, but that's just it. It's only a resource. The problem with wikis is that you pretty much have to know what you're looking for in order for you to find it. Not to mention it's not an all-encompassing history. But here's the hard part. I, despite what I like to believe, am only one person, and YouTube has been going on for almost 8 years now. It's pretty much physically impossible for me, the way I am, to gather up every detail about YouTube's history that I'm interested in getting, and then delivering it to you in one BlueCast episode. I pretty much need to have tons of people on this if I even want a chance of making it work. So that's where you come in. I need 3 kinds of people. For starters, I need researchers and people who can go out to find the information that I need and bring it to me in its raw state. Pretty much anyone can do this. And if you just take a few minutes to look up a specific topic for me and send me the info, you can get your name in the description when I release this. It's fairly easy, but the thing you need to keep in mind is that this is not YouTuber stories. So I'm not interested in every single YouTuber that made the king say dinner. If you were a first-hand witness to a major event in YouTube, that's something you should take up with me right away. Having a primary source, in a sense, is much better than having copied info from the Chewiki. Now, before you researchers go on their way, there's one more thing I have to tell you. I am very fuzzy on anything that happened before 2010, mostly because I was not there for it. Not only do I not know the details of the major events that happened, I don't even know what or whom we should be researching in the first place. So anyone who wants to assist me with that, I would appreciate it. Here are basically the guidelines you should follow. Every major pooper, event, and era needs to be covered. That pretty much covers every popular pooper of the past, all the major changes to the communities, and attacks on our community, like the DMCA attacks, you know. That's the type of thing I'm talking about. And lastly, it pretty much covers the styles that people had during each time period, and who was like ringleader at that time, if you know what I'm saying. That pretty much covers the researchers. And that's, as I said, that's probably the easiest job, if you want to help with this. The next one's a lot different, and I also will probably have to turn a lot of people away for this part. I'm not anywhere sure yet about the length of this project, but I am definitely willing to bet that I am not capable of writing it all by myself. I'll definitely need a team of writers to divide up the work so it's actually manageable. Note, I am going to be very strict on who I allow to be writers. If you want to be a part of this as a writer, you'll have to send me a sample of your work. You'll cover either an event or a person in this community and send it to me. I'll give a few examples on how I need these things to look before you send in your audition. The most important thing to remember is to be as unbiased as possible. Some people may be more suited to writing about popular poopers, since it's a lot easier to just talk about a person than an event in some cases, because you can actually ask the person if they're still around, or people who knew them. For example, let me take Barney is Perverted right now, and show you how I want to do this. Barney is Perverted began watching YouTube Poop in the year 2008, and his favorite YouTube Poopers to follow were Krogo Productions and Santa with Teeth. On January 2011, he made his first YouTube titled Spinbill Has a Pickle Fetish, which many people compared to the styles of CS188, Santa with Teeth, and Hurricoaster. As it would turn out, all three of those YouTubers, and many, many more, would favorite this video and subscribe to him. What happened next was groundbreaking. In a week he had well over 500 subscribers, and his rapid fame would not slow down for a while. BIP's interest was to preserve what he called hybrid style, which was a combination of effects, sentence mixing / story elements. He did not expect to bring it back, but he actually ended up doing something much more revolutionary. He ended up developing a style of his own, one that would become much more popular than he anticipated. It wasn't long before people started trying to copy his style. Some people claimed that the copycats were only interested in gaining subscribers, like BIP did, and this is still disputed today. Either way, through Barney they did get the fame they were looking for, because he popularized many of them. Examples of these are Jurg62, Emperor Lemon, and Link on Drugs, who ironically has now passed him in subscribers. The overarching effect that this created was that popular YouTubers realized how easy it was for them to make other poopers popular. And of course, where there's something popular, someone has to hate it. Some people were angrily complaining that it wasn't fair for these poopers just to copy others with little effort and get thousands of subscribers. These discussions ended up compiling into one of the most popular episodes of the BP show, properly named Spinbill, after the titles of the videos. Others simply saw the event as a great trolling opportunity in these newly popularized poopers, since neither they nor their fans knew how to not feed the troll. So yeah, you get the idea, right? From that point I would probably follow it up with what his style actually was. And on that note, I need some writers who are able to analyze styles as well. I can still do this to an extent, but I am very fuzzy on it, so if it's the same with you, I'd like to keep it in the hands of other people as much as I can. For the sake of an example, I'll just compare QuibiJibby and Swish Films Inc.'s styles, since they were popular poopers around the time of 2009 and 2010. I don't know if I'd actually end up including something like this in the final thing, but let's go over it anyway. In the age of Walrus Guy's popularity, when sentence mixing really started to enter YouTube, two poopers would start their own little journey. Now, fast forward to 2009, post-Walrus Guy. QuibiJibby and Swish Films Inc. are starting to rise in their own popularity. Although it was around this time that traditional CDI sentence mixing videos began to decline, it was not evident from these two. QuibiJibby was made popular for his plot-based CDI videos. They mostly included the king or other characters going on some sort of adventure, and there would be plenty of sex jokes that would come up along the way. Swish can be defined in a similar way, although he did not beat around the bush when it came to putting out the sex jokes, and sometimes they were the basis of the video. As time went on, Quibi almost appears to have taken a hint from Swish's popularity by including a lot more sexual jokes in his videos. This is said because after a long number of video titles, out of nowhere, it seems Quibi started putting the specific joke in the title. A good example is King Harkinian gets his dick stuck in a door. However, one major difference between the two was Swish's frequent use of the censored screen. He would black out the screen in order to indicate that a sexual action was going on in the scene. This is not as prevalent in Quibi's work. As Quibi gained more talent in his sentence mixing, and more popularity, he started to deviate from the Swish style radically, even to the point of making fun of it, in King Harkinian's dick joke causes unforeseen complications. Around 2010, Swish had just about faded from the poop, and Quibi was beginning to follow in his footsteps. However, before leaving us, Swish left us his most insane work yet, The King's Secret, which was about all of Hyrule's reaction to the orgy that was predicted by the Triforce of Wisdom. It had twice as many sex jokes as usual, and the sentence mixing was arguably the most clear that he's ever done. Before Quibi was done, he as well put out one of his most amazing works. This one was King Harkinian is attacked by an army of angry black men, which was about the king offending people in Africa by talking about eating shit. The description does not give the work glory, because in addition to some of the most precise sentence mixing of its time, it also had visual power to back it up. He put masking with his sentence mixing. Basically, it was a lot like Walrus Guy, only the visuals looked a lot more clean, and it was easy to tell that Flash was not used in the creation of it. Since 2011, both of the two have been dead for the most part, and there has not been any major successor to them. Quibi has put out a recent video, but for the most part it seems like a one-time thing that he felt he just had to make. He has not made any promises to return. Alright, you get that, right? And I guess I have to give you an example for an event, too. The most important thing to remember about events is that we really need the account of a direct witness to the event in order to record it properly. An inside man, if you will. I guess the rise and fall of the HYTPHA is one of the few events I was a major part of, so I'll describe that. In late 2010, Spadiner was still alive and well in the community. Naturally, this was upsetting to some of the people who did not like Spadiner poops. Stuart K. Riley and a lot of members on YouTube at this time were sternly opposed to Spadiner poopers and wished for a way to put a stop to it. One group of people started to take a major action against them. Chewiki and friends were a small group of YouTube poopers. There was no defined style amongst the group, but they had all, for the most part, stopped using Spadiner around the same time. Having the similar style brought the group together, and the friendships made kept it strong. Chewiki and others were interested in putting down Spadiner a bit, and began to make lists of the top 10 worst YouTube poops of the month, in contrast to Kevin's lists. Chewiki almost always had a poop that he considered bad featured on his channel, and his little group went around trying to convince people that Spadiner was bad. In that fall, they had a new member to their little circle that would dramatically change things soon. Joe the Blue Dragon had recently stopped being a fan of Spadiner poops and wished to do something that would eliminate them, so naturally he was drawn into their group having similar goals. Around that time, True to Poops gave a name to the group, the Horrible YouTube Poop Hunting Association, and their game became official. Chewiki, Sight Junction, and other members began to become consumed with their self-proclaimed divine job of destroying Spadiner, as they went full out. Their rash and frightening change in behavior made Doom Zappo and Joe concerned for their well-being. Chewiki began composing the worst YouTube poop of the year competition around the time that things started to heat up. Chewiki and Jesters of Chaos ridiculed True to Poops for his subscriber special, because they believed that it was awful and the sentence mixing was terrible. After Chewiki mentioned that they were probably going to put it on the list for that month, Joe the Blue Dragon snapped and got into a full-blown argument with him over how it wasn't fair to make fun of True to Poops just because one video wasn't pleasing to them. He didn't know it at the time, but Joe was beginning to form in his head the idea that there was no such thing as a good and bad YouTube poop, and that it was just a matter of opinion. The situation cooled down shortly after Chewiki said the video was not going to be put on the list. However, tensions inside the group were starting to rise a bit. Things reached a boiling point when Joe made a joke video where he called anyone who used Windows Movie Maker a bad pooper. Chewiki freaked out over the joke. In Joe's mind, he was facing the ultimate hypocrisy. Someone who made fun of the work of other people, but couldn't stand the concept of being made the butt of the joke. Eventually the friendship was gone, and there was a constant presence of a very grave tension amongst the group. No one talked about the fight, and besides Chewiki, no one talked about the HYTPHA. At least they didn't in the open. Eventually, Joe broke the silence, and the entire group. On his blog, he declared to be in a state of war with the HYTPHA, and stated every reason that he believed that what they were doing was wrong, claiming that anyone in the right mind from the group would join him. He ended the blog officially, declaring for the first time that he believed there was no such thing as a bad YouTube poop. To his surprise, Joe had no war to fight. The majority of the HYTPHA members came out and said they never really liked the idea of the group. True to Poops was Chewik's only supporter left, but even when Chewiki gave up and handed over the leadership to him, TTP decided to go along with the rest of them and declare the HYTPHA no more. Even though Joe would end up changing his mind back and forth between the ideas of YouTube subjectivity a few times after this, it was extremely significant for him. It was the first time he ever assumed leadership in order to get something done, and the members of the HYTPHA did not disappear. They just took a different name. They took the name The Little Dragons, which would take on a different meaning of its own later in time. By the way, everything in that story is completely true, and I can prove it for the record. Now, obviously, I'm going to cut out a lot of the insignificant details when I go to do the final draft, and there's probably bias in all three of the things, but I literally just wrote those off the top of my head for you to get an idea. They're not final drafts if you're thinking they are. Now, finally, the last group of people I need is voices. Voices. As I said, this is probably going to end up being an incredibly long BlueCast episode. And considering how most of you are already pretty bored with my bland voice already, I just see no possible way I could read the entire history of YouTube Poop on my own and have people actually interested in it. There's also going to be some type of audition thing for this too. But I'm pretty loose about who gets in. If you want to do the readings for this, message me and I'll get you a thing to read for me as a sample. The things I'm looking for in readers are having a clear voice that isn't completely boring to listen to. To give you an idea, you have to at least sound as good as I am while I'm making these things, and that's not very hard to do, as you can tell. Secondly, you need to be able to stay to the script, but not sound like you're doing it. It's hard to explain. I know a lot of voice actors sometimes feel they need to improvise in order to actually say what's written clearly. So unless you bring it up with me beforehand, I'll almost need you to read the script word for word. Simple as ABC, right? Now I think I've gone on for quite enough, and while I haven't explained things as fully as I think is necessary, I think it will be much easier to learn by trial and error. If you have any questions, please send them to me. I am almost positive that if you ask a question about even something I've mentioned 4 times in this, it will be beneficial, because it's always easier for me to answer a specific question, rather than just say it in the BlueCast. Okay, so that's about it. Run along, little historians. We have a long road ahead of us if we want to get this done.